You're scrolling through your phone right now. You've probably been doing it for the last hour without even realizing it. But here's a question that should make you uncomfortable. What would you do if that phone disappeared forever? Not just your phone. All of it. No internet. No electricity. No screens. Nothing. That's the reality ancient humans lived in for hundreds of thousands of years. And somehow, they weren't just surviving. They were thriving. So what were they actually doing when boredom hit? Let's start with the obvious answer first, and then we'll get to the weird one. Most ancient humans spent their days hunting, gathering, and surviving. There's no denying that. But survival didn't take up every single hour. A study by anthropologists looking at modern hunter-gatherer societies, which are probably our closest living comparison to ancient humans, found something shocking. These people worked maybe 4 to 6 hours a day to meet their basic needs. 4 to 6 hours. That means ancient humans had somewhere between 8 and 12 hours of free time every single day. More free time than you probably have. So what were they doing with it? Here's where it gets interesting. They were storytelling. And I don't mean sitting around a fire trading gossip, though that definitely happened too. Ancient humans had oral traditions that were absolutely sophisticated. We're talking epics that would take hours to recite. Stories within stories within stories. The Aboriginal Australians had songlines, massive geographical narratives that mapped out entire continents through song and story. One person could spend days reciting these. And the fascinating part? These weren't just entertainment. They were teaching survival, history, morality, and practical knowledge all at once. But more importantly, they were passing time in a way that felt meaningful. Because here's what your phone does that ancient entertainment didn't: it doesn't make you feel like you're part of something. Ancient storytelling was community. It was participation. But that's just one piece of it. Another huge part of their free time went to art. We found cave paintings that are 40,000 years old. Not crude stick figures. Intricate paintings of animals with shading, perspective, and technique. Someone spent hours, maybe days, creating these. We've found Venus figurines carved from ivory and stone. Flutes made from bird bones. Jewelry. And here's the thing that proves this wasn't just survival: a lot of this art serves no practical purpose whatsoever. It was pure creation. Pure expression. A human being with free time, looking at a cave wall or a piece of bone, and deciding to make something beautiful. That impulse to create is still inside you, by the way. Your phone just convinced you that scrolling is easier. Then there's the music and dance. We don't have recordings, obviously, but we have instruments. Percussion instruments made from hollowed logs. String instruments made from animal sinew and wood. And every single culture that ever existed, everywhere on Earth, had music and dance. Not because it helped them hunt better, but because rhythm does something to the human brain. It makes time feel different. It creates connection. A group of people dancing together for an hour feels like it lasted 5 minutes. And when you're bored, when time feels heavy and slow, that's exactly what you need. Your ancestors knew that. They built their entire free time around activities that could make time disappear. But here's the darker part that most people don't think about. Ancient humans also gambled. A lot. We found dice carved from bone that are over 5,000 years old. Playing cards in ancient China. Games of chance and strategy existed everywhere. And the reason they gambled wasn't just for entertainment. It was for the same reason you check your phone constantly. It was unpredictable. The outcome wasn't known. Your brain releases dopamine when it encounters something uncertain. Ancient humans had figured that out intuitively. They created activities that hijacked their brains the same way your phone does now. They just did it with bones instead of screens. There's also something we tend to underestimate: conversation. Just talking. 4 hours. No phones, no distractions, no notifications. Just human beings sitting together and talking. about ideas, about philosophy, about dreams and fears. We know this happened because every human culture developed philosophy and complex ethical systems. They didn't do that by staying silent. They did it by talking, by debating, by asking questions that had no answers and spending hours exploring them anyway. And here's what's wild, that form of boredom relief, that kind of deep conversation, is almost extinct now. Because whenever silence threatens, you pull out your phone. You interrupt the moment. You break the thread of thought. Ancient humans also played games of strategy. Chess, in some form or another, existed in various cultures. Go in ancient China. Games where you had to think ahead, anticipate your opponent's moves, and plan complex strategies. These aren't games you can play mindlessly. They demanded your full attention. They demanded hours. And people chose to play them because time spent on a challenging game feels less like waiting and more like living. They also did something called daydreaming, which sounds simple, but was actually crucial. They stared at fires, watched clouds, watched water flow, and they let their minds wander. We don't have a cultural permission for that anymore. Boredom is treated like a disease. But for ancient humans, boredom was the space where creativity happened. Where your mind makes connections it wouldn't make otherwise. Where you think about problems and solutions emerge. The ancient humans weren't filling every silence with stimulus. They were comfortable with space. And finally, this is going to sound strange, but they spent a lot of free time on what we'd call self-care. Making music that was soothing. Creating art that was meditative. Gathering with others in ways that felt restorative. And they had rituals. Repeated activities that provided comfort and structure. Daily rituals. Seasonal rituals. Rituals that marked time and gave it meaning. Your morning coffee is a ritual. But ancient humans had far more elaborate ones. And they served the same purpose, making empty time feel like it mattered. Here's what all of this adds up to. Ancient humans, when they were bored, didn't pull out a device. They created. They connected. They challenged themselves. They thought. They daydreamed. They participated in community. They made things with their hands. They told stories. They played music. They danced. They asked questions that had no answers and sat with the uncertainty. And somehow, despite having no technology, they felt less bored than you do. The irony is that you have access to all of this right now. You can create. You can connect deeply. You can challenge yourself. You can daydream. You can sit with uncertainty. You can make something with your hands. You can tell stories. You can play music. You can dance. You can ask the big questions. But you've been trained to reach for the phone instead. So the real question isn't what ancient humans did when they were bored. It's what you're going to do the next time boredom hits and you reach for your phone. Maybe, just maybe, you'll remember what your ancestors knew. That boredom isn't something to escape. It's something to explore. And on the other side of that exploration is something far more interesting than anything a screen could ever show you.